So let's talk about 1953. It was the year the CIA secretly took down the democratically elected leader of Iran. This one event completely reshaped the Middle East and honestly poisoned the relationship between the US and Iran for decades. We're going to dive into how this covert mission, codenamed Operation Ajax, actually went down and why we're all still feeling the consequences of it today.
You know, this question, from an Iranian woman years after the coup, it just cuts right to the heart of the whole story. For so many Iranians, 1953 was the moment. Everything changed. It's a memory that's still sharp, still painful, and it explains so much of the anger and hostility that came later. To really understand where we are now, we have to answer her question. Why did the Americans do it?
Okay, so our story is going to start in a kind of weird place. Not at the beginning, but right in the thick of it, with a spectacular failure. It's a hot summer night in Tehran, and a secret plan to overthrow the government is officially a go. But things are about to go very, very wrong.
I mean, just picture this scene. An armored column is rumbling through the quiet streets of the city, led by a guy named Colonel Nasiri from the Imperial Guard. His one job, arrest the Prime Minister Mossadegh. And the detail that makes this whole thing feel kind of surreal? The theme song the CIA agents picked for their secret coup was "Luck Be a Lady Tonight." You can't make this stuff up.
Well, luck was definitely not a lady that night. Somebody tipped off Mossadegh. So the guy who was supposed to be doing the arresting, Colonel Nasiri, ends up getting arrested himself. The Shah of Iran, the monarch who was supposed to be put in power, he totally panics, jumps in his private plane and gets out of the country, telling the American ambassador on his way out that he expects he'll be looking for work shortly. Just like that, the coup had completely collapsed. So who was the guy behind this whole wild plot? Well, meet the American mastermind, Kermit Roosevelt. And yes, that Roosevelt. He was Teddy's grandson. He was the CIA's top spy for the whole region, a pretty quiet guy who was an expert in what the agency called dirty tricks. He actually snuck into Iran using a passport that, because of a border guard who couldn't read so well, identified him only as Mr. Scar on right forehead.
And get this, while he's in Iran trying to run this whole secret operation, Roosevelt has to keep a low profile so he would go play tennis. But he had this funny little habit. Every time he'd miss a shot, he'd curse out his famous Democratic cousin by yelling, "Oh, Roosevelt!" If anyone asked him about it, he'd just say he was a really passionate Republican.
Okay, so let's just pause here for a second. The mission is a total disaster. The Shah has fled. The CIA agent sent to overthrow a government is now stuck in Tehran with his plan totally in ruins. So this brings up two huge questions. Why was the CIA even trying to overthrow Iran's prime minister, and what was this all really about? To answer that, we gotta rewind.
The answer, really, it all boils down to one word: oil. For decades, one single British company had an absolute iron grip on Iran's most valuable resource. And this wasn't just some business, it was basically an arm of the British Empire, and it was making them an insane amount of money. To really get a sense of the stakes here, you just have to hear how Winston Churchill described it. And believe me, he was not exaggerating. This company, the Anglo-Iranian Oil Company, or AIOC, was mostly owned by the British government. The oil from Iran powered the entire Royal Navy. It fueled the British economy. To them, this was a treasure you just couldn't put a price on.
And this slide, wow, it just lays out the reality on the ground so starkly. The company built this huge refinery in a city called Abadan. And for the British managers, it was paradise, right? Manicured lawns, private clubs, beautiful homes. But for the tens of thousands of Iranian workers, it was a completely different story. They were living in slums, crammed into dorms with terrible sanitation, and totally shut out from the British facilities. They even had water fountains with signs that said, "Not for Iranians." And for all this wealth being pumped from its own soil, what did Iran get? Well, back in 1920, the deal gave Iran just 16% of the net profits. That came out to a measly £47,000. So Iranians were just watching as a foreign country got incredibly rich off their national resource, while their own country was still mired in poverty. You can imagine the resentment was just bubbling under the surface.
So, into this incredibly tense situation steps one man who basically became the face of Iran's fight for independence, a man who would become a national hero and a mortal enemy of the British Empire. His name was Mohammad Mossadegh.
Now, Mossadegh was not your typical politician. He was called a titanic figure. He actually came from a royal family, but he was also this incredibly passionate believer in democracy and the rule of law. And he had one single-minded goal: to take back Iran's oil for the Iranian people. He became such a big deal on the world stage that in 1951, Time magazine named him Man of the Year, choosing him over people like Winston Churchill and Dwight Eisenhower. And in 1951, he actually did it. As Prime Minister, Mossadegh got a law passed that nationalized the AIOC. He was effectively taking back his country's main resource. For Iranians, this was an incredible moment of national pride. People were celebrating in the streets. For the British, though, it was an act of war.
Britain's reaction was swift and it was furious. First, they tried legal action, taking him to the World Court. Then they sent warships to the Persian Gulf to try and scare him. After that, they launched economic warfare, organizing a global embargo so no one could buy Iran's oil, which absolutely crushed the economy. And when none of that worked, their spy agency, MI6, started plotting a coup to just get rid of him for good.
But Britain had a pretty big problem. Mossadegh found out about their little plot and kicked all their diplomats and spies out of Iran. So if they were going to overthrow him now, they were going to need help. And that's the moment this fight over oil got tangled up in the much bigger fight of the Cold War.
This slide right here is so important because it shows you how dramatically American policy shifted. President Truman, he'd actually been pretty sympathetic to Mossadegh. He hated Britain's old-school imperialist vibe and wanted no part of a coup. He flat out refused to help. But then, in 1953, Dwight Eisenhower becomes president, and he and his top guys, the Dulles brothers, saw communism everywhere. They were terrified that a chaotic Iran could fall to the Soviet Union and become another China.
And you know, the British spies were really clever about this. A top MI6 agent, a guy named Christopher Woodhouse, he admitted his strategy years later. He knew Washington didn't really care about Britain's lost oil profits. So, to get the Americans on board, he intentionally changed the subject. He stopped talking about oil and he started talking about the communist threat. And it totally worked. The Eisenhower administration bought it, hook, line, and sinker. The CIA would do the job.
Which brings us right back to where we started. Kermit Roosevelt's first try at a coup on August 15th was a complete bust. But he didn't pack up and go home. Nope. He stayed in Tehran, he improvised. And a few days later, a second attempt, this one fueled by CIA cash and paid-off mobs, it worked. Mossadegh was overthrown. But this victory was about to unleash some devastating long-term consequences.
And this chain of events right here, this is the crucial takeaway. The coup absolutely destroyed Iran's young democracy. The U.S. put the Shah back on the throne, and he ruled as a brutal dictator for the next 26 years. The deep, deep anger at his repressive rule and at his American backers finally exploded in 1979 with the Islamic Revolution. And that revolution led directly to the Iran hostage crisis and basically set the stage for the 4 decades of hostility that have defined the U.S.-Iran relationship ever since.
You know, the coup in Iran wasn't just a big deal for the Middle East. It was a massive turning point for America, too. Operation Ajax was the very first time the CIA had ever overthrown a foreign government in peacetime. And it worked so well, they thought, that it became a kind of blueprint, a pattern of intervention that America would repeat all over the world for decades. And so that's the question we're left with, isn't it? The guys who planned Operation Ajax, they saw it as a quick, clean, successful victory in the Cold War. But looking back at it now, with all the benefit of hindsight, we can see how that short-term win planted the seeds for so much long-term conflict, mistrust, and blowback. It's just a powerful and kind of painful lesson in how the secret actions of the past are still shaping the very dangerous realities of today.